A woman named Anissa Jones was born on March 11, 1958, in West Lafayette, Indiana. West Lafayette is a quiet town in the Midwest that is best known as the home of Purdue University. She spent her early life in Charleston, West Virginia, a city in the Appalachians that is full of history and natural beauty. Up until she was 5 years old, she lived in Charleston. Those were the last years of her life when she lived with her whole family, which was a very important time for her. Anissa's mother's family history was a big part of how she became who she is. Her grandparents on her mom's side came to the United States from Lebanon. They brought with them the Maronite Christian community's traditions, customs, and language. Lebanese Maronites often used her unique given name, Anissa, instead of Agnes, as a cultural choice. The name doesn't come from Latin or Greek. Instead, it comes from the Persian name Anahid, which is also written as Anahit or Anais, and means immaculate or pure. This name has strong spiritual and innocent meanings. The fact that Anissa's name had both religious and Middle Eastern meanings showed how proud her family was of their history, and it would make her stand out in public later on. Her family had a history of good grades and success. John Paul Jones, Anissa's father, was a smart man with a degree in engineering and a job as a professor at Purdue University when she was born. He helped shape the minds of young engineering students and was well known in his area. At the same time, her mother, Mary Paula Jones, née Tweel, was studying for a degree in biology. This showed that they both liked learning in the home. Mary Paula also had Lebanese ancestry through the Tweel family. The Tweel last name is still common in Lebanese American groups, but their marriage didn't last long. By the early 1960s, things were getting worse in the family, and the couple got a split just before Anissa's acting career really took off. Anissa was affected by the breakup for a long time. Even as a child, she felt the emotional weight of a family split at a time when she was becoming more well-known. In 1960, Anissa became a big sister when her brother, John Paul Jones Jr., was born. The family loved him and called him Paul. They were close, and their friendship would become one of the few things that stayed the same in Anissa's often crazy life. A short time after Paul was born, his family moved to Playa del Rey, a beach town near Los Angeles. The Jones family made a big change in their lives when they moved from the Midwest to Southern California. They were now in the middle of the growing entertainment and aircraft industries. Anissa's dad now works as an aerospace engineer in the fast-growing tech corridor in Southern California. This was a very popular job during the height of the Cold War and space race. She started going to Paseo del Rey Elementary School, a simple public school near the Pacific Ocean, where her imagination and charm began to shine early on. Later, she started going to Orville Wright Junior High School, which happened during the most important years of her young life. Anissa's first experience with TV was when she was only 6 years old, in 1964. Her first role was in a TV commercial, which was a popular way for child actors to get started back then. Anissa had a lot of the traits that were needed for these short but difficult roles: charm, poise, and the ability to follow directions. Agents noticed that her small frame and youthful looks made her a natural choice for younger parts. In 1966, just 2 years after her commercial start, Anissa was still small for her age, even though she was 8 years old. She played Ava Elizabeth Buffy Patterson Davis, a 6-year-old girl, on CBS's sweet sitcom Family Affair, and did a great job of it. She would never be the same after seeing the show. When Family Affair first aired in 1966, it became a huge hit right away. In the show, Buffy, her twin brother Jody, played by Johnny Whitaker, and their teenage sister Sissy, played by Kathy Garver, lose their parents in a terrible car accident and are left without parents. Because they don't have any other close relatives, the 3 kids are taken in by their sophisticated but somewhat unwilling Bachelor Uncle Bill Davis, played by actor Brian Keith. Sebastian Cabot plays Mr. French, Uncle Bill's traditional English butler who helps him raise the kids. People felt sad when they saw a loved family dealing with grief and trying to get used to their new life. The way Anissa played Buffy, with her big eyes and signature bunches, made people love her right away. Her relationship with her twin brother Jody, whom she called Jody Waddy, became one of the most loved parts of the show. As the TV show Family Affair reached its peak success in the late 1960s, Anissa Jones became one of the most famous child stars in America. Fan magazines and lunchboxes had pictures of her on them, and she was often asked to do interviews and public events. Her only movie role was in The Trouble with Girls in 1969, when she was 11 years old and at the height of her fame. Elvis Presley stars in this musical thriller. Even though her part was small, it was a big deal for her career because it was the first time she appeared on film with one of the most famous actors in movie history. Also that same year, she had a famous crossover role as Buffy on the short-lived sitcom To Rome with Love, which starred John Forsythe. This showed how much the figure of Buffy had connected with both viewers and network executives. Anissa's career in TV and films was surprisingly short, even though she was very famous. They broke up in 1971, when she was only 12 years old. Jones had been famous for almost half of her life by that point. Immediately after the end of the show, she made the clear and final choice to stop acting. Anissa never went back to acting in films or on TV like some child stars did when they became teens or adults. Her acting career ended quickly for a number of reasons, such as being typecast in the business, the personal and emotional toll of early fame, and changes in her family life. When Anissa left the screen, fans wondered what else she could have done, and she herself had a hard time figuring out who she was without the role that made her famous. The effect of her role as Buffy will last forever in the history of classic American television, even though her time in the spotlight was short. The sad life and early death of child star Anissa Jones were one of Hollywood's most disturbing and heartbreaking secrets for many years. Anissa won over millions of hearts with her wide-eyed innocence and contagious charm. She was best known for playing the sweet Buffy on the hit 1960s series Family Affair. But behind her sweet TV character was a young girl who was quietly dealing with the crushing stresses of fame, a broken family, and a system that left her when the cameras stopped rolling. Now, after years of guessing and unsolved questions, we have a better idea of what happened that tragically killed her at the age of 18. What we now know is very upsetting. There has been a lot of talk about how Anissa died in 1976 for a long time. Her quick death from a deadly mix of drugs caused a lot of questions. People seem to really like this young person, but how could they fall so quickly into darkness? What went wrong in the years between canceling family plans and that terrible day in a friend's Oceanside, California home? Also, why didn't anyone step in? After being buried for a long time by family problems, court cases, and Hollywood's lack of interest, the solutions are finally being found, and they paint a picture of a young life that has been ruined by neglect and abuse. A big secret comes out about how Anissa was handled on and off set during her time in the press. Like many child actors of the time, she never had the safety nets or mental health help that an atmosphere with so much stress and focus on adults required. There was no more Family Affair in 1971, and Anissa was only 13 years old. Her work stopped all of a sudden, and she had to face the harsh truth that the business no longer needed her. The people who were casting her didn't see her as a teenager. They saw Buffy anyway. It's too bad that no one helped her through that difficult change. It was like she was thrown back into normal life. But things were not normal for her. Her school wasn't like other schools. She didn't have any friends. There were no adults in her life who cared about her well-being beyond the fame she used to have. Even worse was the fact that the money she had made and was legally entitled to was not handled properly. Reports say that her trust fund, which the Coogan law says should be safe to protect child actors, was either not handled properly or used too soon. Because Anissa was no longer famous, she had no purpose in life and no way to make money. Because her parents had been fighting for a long time and were no longer close, they couldn't give her the stable mental support she needed. Because she was dealing with her own problems, her mother missed the signs that her daughter was losing it. Even though he was trying to help, her father didn't have much formal power at that point. In her late teens, Anissa hung out with people who were not helpful friends, but rather people who made it easier for her to live a bad life. She began hanging out with older, more unstable people who had easy access to hard drugs and didn't have many rules. She really needed to get away, be accepted, and find out who she was. In her last days, she acted more and more recklessly, like a young woman in free fall who was trying to numb her pain in any way she could. In a tragic turn of events, she was found dead on August 28, 1976, from a huge drug overdose. The toxicology report showed that barbiturates, cocaine, PCP, and quaaludes were all mixed together and killed the person. At the time, the doctor said it was one of the worst overdoses ever seen in San Diego County. Even after all these years, her death still casts a long shadow, especially over the entertainment business, which often makes child stars famous only to dump them when their innocence wears off. Long thought to be just about how Anissa Jones died, the story now seems more like a warning about what can happen when a young star is taken over by the machine that made her famous. The real question was never just how she died. It was about how many people let her down while she was still living. In the past few years, family interviews, newly discovered court papers, and first-hand accounts from people who knew Anissa have all helped to piece together the sad story of her downfall. Paul Jones, her brother, also had a problem with drugs and died in a suspicious way a few years after Anissa. He once talked in public about how their crazy life had left mental scars. Grew up, and Anissa's instant fame. She was said to have felt very alone, mentally abandoned, and totally unprepared for life after TV. These accounts help show that Anissa's death wasn't just the result of a bad night. It was the end of years of abuse, neglect, and being alone. People didn't know much about the sad life of child actor Anissa Jones for many years. She was talked about in Hollywood and mourned by fans who knew her as Buffy, the sweet blonde from the hit sitcom Family Affair. But until her brother Paul Jones finally chose to tell the truth, not many people knew how hard her life was, how much pressure she was under behind the scenes, or how sad her last days were. In one of his last public comments before his untimely death in 1984, Paul talked about the terrible pain his family went through. He revealed a shocking story of lost innocence, exploitation, and neglect that shocked the whole world. Because of grief, fear, and mental trauma, Paul had kept quiet for years, but now he told private details about their lives before and after fame changed everything. Paul says that the Jones family was not ready for the amount of attention and stress that Anissa's quickly rising fame brought. Millions of people loved Anissa before she was even 8 years old. Behind the scenes, though, she was being pushed to her limits. Paul talked about how their mother, wanting Anissa to be famous, was very strict with her, while ignoring how it hurt her emotionally. He said that Anissa's parents didn't do much to protect her from the bad parts of the business, and that she was often alone, overworked, and couldn't have the carefree childhood that most kids take for granted. Paul claimed that the public never knew how much Anissa was hurting. After the end of Family Affair in 1971, Anissa had a hard time finding work, and was alone in a world that used to love her, but now didn't. Paul talked about how her sudden fall from fame made her feel worthless, used, and ignored, which led her to become depressed and abuse drugs. He said in a serious tone that she was only a child, but the world treated her like a thing to be used up and thrown away. He also said that Anissa had tried to get help more than once, but her family, the system, and the very business that had helped her get where she was didn't listen to her. The most shocking thing was when Paul said he had been with Anissa the night she died in 1976, just hours before she died of a huge drug overdose. She was only 18 years old. He talked about the scary picture of his sister, who was already weak and had hollow eyes. As they spent a quiet evening together, they tried to laugh and act like everything was okay. After the fact, he would say that he was too young, too confused, and too numb from his own trauma to see the warning signs and blame himself for not realizing how bad her situation was. People became interested in Anissa's story again after Paul's honest emotional disclosures, but not as a warning tale of a child star gone wrong, but as a sad example of a young girl who was weak and was abused by a cruel system. His words told of a kind, caring, and loving girl whose life was ruined by fame, mistreated by those who should have looked out for her, and then forgotten until it was too late. And Paul Jones died at the age of 24 from what many think was a broken heart, just 2 years after he let the world see his soul. They spoke the truth, and you can still hear it in the halls of Hollywood.